The Galactic Council chamber was a marvel of engineering and diversity, its towering architecture designed to accommodate species of every conceivable shape and size. For Daniel Riker, the human diplomat selected to represent Earth, the sheer scale of it was overwhelming. Rows of delegates fill the amphitheater, their distinct appearances a testament to the variety of life in the galaxy. Daniel stood at his assigned seat, his tailored suit and calm demeanor contrasting sharply with the vibrant and exotic forms surrounding him. As he scanned the room, he felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. Humanity had fought for years to earn a seat at this table, and now they had to prove they belonged. "Quite the spectacle, isn't it?" a voice beside him said. Daniel turned to see Tom Calloway, an old friend and fellow diplomat, grinning. Tom had been stationed on an outpost near the Galactic Center and was well acquainted with the quirks of interspecies diplomacy. "You could say that," Daniel replied, his voice low. "It's not every day you get to be the face of your entire species." Tom chuckled. "Don't screw it up, then." Before Daniel could respond, a chime rang out, signaling the start of the session. A tall, crystalline figure with shifting hues, identified as the current speaker, stepped forward, its voice resonating through the chamber like a symphony. "Today, we welcome a new presence to our council," the speaker announced. "The species known as humans, hailing from the Sol system, have petitioned for equal representation. We will hear their case." All eyes turned to Daniel as he stepped forward to the central podium. He could feel the weight of their scrutiny, but pushed his nerve aside. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Daniel began, his voice steady. "Humanity stands before you not as conquerors or intruders, but as explorers and collaborators. We come with open hands, seeking to learn and to share what we can offer." The room buzzed with low murmurs, the reactions of the delegates mixed. Daniel continued, highlighting humanity's strides in technology, diplomacy, and cultural exchange, but he knew it wouldn't be enough. Humanity's history of conflict cast a long shadow. As he concluded his speech, a delegate from the Thoraxi, a reptilian species known for their aggressive tendencies, rose. "Humans speak of collaboration, yet their history is riddled with violence. How can we trust a species that so often turns to war?" Daniel hesitated, but before he could respond, another voice cut through the chamber. "Perhaps because they have learned from it." The speaker was a slender figure with shimmering silver skin and glowing blue eyes, a member of the Talonari, a species renowned for their unwavering commitment to peace. The room fell silent as the Talonari delegate rose, her movements graceful yet deliberate. "We too have faced challenges in our history. Yet we do not judge a species solely by their past. Humanity's capacity for growth should not be dismissed." Daniel turned to her, surprised. He hadn't expected an ally, least of all from the Talonari. After the session adjourned, he sought her out in the council's atrium. "You didn't have to defend us back there," Daniel said as he approached her. "But I'm grateful you did." The Talonari delegate regarded him with calm curiosity. "Mira," she introduced herself, her voice soft yet firm. "And you are Daniel Riker, the human representative." "That's me," he replied, offering a small smile. "I'd like to understand why you spoke up for us. Your people are known for their caution when it comes to conflict." Mira tilted her head slightly, as if considering her words. "We Talonari value peace above all, but peace does not mean ignorance. I have studied your species, and while your history is complex, I see potential in your capacity for change." "That means a lot coming from you," Daniel said earnestly. "I hope I can live up to your expectations." Myra's lips curved into a faint smile. "We shall see, Daniel Riker. For now, I suggest you focus on navigating the intricacies of this council. It is a place of many voices, not all of them kind." "Good advice," Daniel acknowledged. "Perhaps you could help me understand it better. Over dinner, maybe?" Myra's silver skin seemed to shimmer slightly, a reaction Daniel couldn't quite decipher. A bold request for a first meeting. "Very human of you." Daniel chuckled. "I take that as a compliment. What do you say?" After a moment's pause, Mira inclined her head. "Very well. Let us see if your word hold as much substance as your courage." As they parted ways, Daniel couldn't help but feel a spark of optimism. Humanity's place in the galaxy was far from secure, but if he could build a connection with someone like Mira, perhaps the path forward wouldn't be as daunting as it seemed. Chapter 2: Humanity's Reputation. Daniel Riker strolled through the dimly lit corridors of the Galactic Council station, his thoughts still turning over the events of the previous session. Despite Myra's unexpected defense of humanity, It was clear the other species remained skeptical. Their whispered conversations and sideways glances reminded him that humanity's past wasn't something they'd forget or forgive easily. He stopped in front of the glass-paneled observation deck, gazing out at the sprawling expanse of stars. The station orbited a blue-white star that cast soft light across the metallic surface of the docking base. It was a rare moment of quiet reflection, but it didn't last long. Still pondering yesterday's fireworks, Tom Calloway's familiar voice broke the silence. Daniel turned to see his fellow human diplomat approaching with 2 steaming cups. He handed one to Daniel. "You look like you need it." "Thanks," Daniel said, taking a sip. The warmth was soothing. "Just trying to figure out how to turn things around. The Thoraxi aren't wrong. Our history doesn't paint a pretty picture." Tom leaned against the railing, his expression thoughtful. "Sure, but every species here has skeletons in their closets. Some are just better at hiding them. What matters is how we spin the story now." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "You make it sound like PR." "Because it is," Tom replied, grinning. "Diplomacy is just PR for nations, or in this case, planets." Before Daniel could respond, the soft chime of approaching footsteps drew their attention. Mira emerged from the shadows, her silver skin glowing faintly under the ambient light. She carried herself with the effortless grace of her kind, her expression calm but focused. "Am I interrupting?" she asked, her gaze flicking between the 2 men. "Not at all," Daniel said, straightening. "Mira, this is Tom Calloway, another representative of Earth." Tom extended a hand, his signature charm in full effect. "Pleasure to meet you, Mira. I've heard a lot about the Talon Nari. Your people are legendary for their diplomacy." Mira hesitated before taking his hand briefly. "And I've heard much about humanity. Your reputation precedes you." "Not sure if that's a compliment or a warning," Tom quipped. "A bit of both," Mira replied, her lips curving into a faint smile. She turned to Daniel. "I wanted to follow up on yesterday's session. It seems your people are at a crossroads, trying to convince the council of your intentions." Daniel nodded. "That's about right. We want to show we can contribute meaningfully, but our history keeps coming back to haunt us." "History is not easily forgotten," Mira said, her tone reflective, "but it can be contextualized. Perhaps your people could focus on examples of cooperation rather than conflict." Daniel's mind immediately turned to humanity's achievements in science and medicine, areas where collaboration had transcended national boundaries. "We have plenty of those. The challenge is convincing the council to look past their biases." Mira regarded him thoughtfully. "The council operates on relationships. Those who doubt you must be swayed by those they already trust. You need allies. And here I thought you already liked us," Tom interjected, his tone teasing. Mira gave him a measured look. "Liking is not the same as endorsing. I defended you because I see potential, not because I am convinced." "Fair enough," Daniel said. "But if potential isn't enough, what would convince you?" Mira tilted her head slightly, considering. "Show me. Not in words, but in actions. If humanity can demonstrate its value, its ability to coexist and cooperate, I might be inclined to speak further on your behalf." Daniel met her gaze, sensing the challenge behind her calm demeanor. "You'll have it. Give me a few days, and I'll show you what humanity is capable of." "I'll hold you to that," Mira said, her tone neutral, but her eyes betraying curiosity. "For now, I'll leave you to your tea." "Good day, Daniel." "Tom." With that, she turned and walked away, her movements as fluid as water. Tom watched her go, his grin fading slightly. "She's tough to impress," he remarked. "She should be," Daniel replied. "If we can't impress someone like her, what chance do we have with the rest of the council?" Tom clapped him on the shoulder. "Then you'd better get to work, because if anyone can pull this off, it's you." Later that day, Daniel and Tom convened in one of the station's quieter meeting rooms to brainstorm their next steps. They compiled a list of humanity's achievements: space exploration, environmental restoration, disease eradication, all projects that required collaboration on a global scale. "What we need," Tom said, tapping the table for emphasis, "is a demonstration. Something live, here on the station, that proves humanity isn't all war and conflict." Daniel nodded. "Agreed. We'll organize a presentation and invite the council members. Something interactive that highlights our cooperative side." As they worked late into the night, refining their plan, Daniel felt a renewed sense of purpose. He wasn't just representing Earth. He was fighting for humanity's place among the stars. And with allies like Tom and, hopefully, Mira, he believed they had a real shot. Chapter 3. Unlikely Allies. The preparation for the presentation, showcasing humanity's achievements, was in full swing. Daniel and Tom worked tirelessly to organize an event that would prove to the Galactic Council that humanity was more than its history of conflict. They chose a venue on the station that allowed for interactive displays and invited delegates from various species to attend. The goal was simple: highlight humanity's capacity for collaboration and ingenuity. On the day of the event, Daniel stood near the entrance, greeting guests as they arrived. Mira was among the first to appear, her silver skin shimmering under the soft light. She wore the flowing, translucent garments typical of the Talinari, their elegance accentuating her calm demeanor. "Impressive turnout," she remarked, glancing at the growing crowd. "Let's hope it stays that way," Daniel replied, a touch of nervousness in his voice. "We've got a lot riding on this." "You've put in significant effort," Mira noted, her tone neutral, but her gaze lingering on Daniel. "I'm curious to see how it unfolds." "That makes two of us," Tom said, joining them with a wide grin. "Nice to see you again, Mira. You ready to be dazzled by some human ingenuity?" Myra's lips curved into a faint smile. "I'm here to observe. Whether I am dazzled depends entirely on your presentation." "Challenge accepted," Tom quipped before moving to help with last-minute arrangements. The event began with a holographic timeline of humanity's achievements, starting with the early space race and culminating in the development of interstellar travel. As the images played, Daniel narrated the story, emphasizing moments of global unity and cooperation. "We are a species that has faced many challenges," he said, addressing the audience. "But each time, we've found ways to overcome them, not alone, but together. That is the essence of who we are." The crowd responded with polite applause, but Daniel could sense some skepticism lingering in the air. The next segment was designed to be more engaging, a series of live demonstrations showcasing human technologies, including advanced medical devices and sustainable energy solutions. One station displayed a compact agricultural system that could grow food in extreme conditions. A tall, insectoid delegate approached Daniel as he explained the system's design. "This could be useful on my homeworld," the delegate said, its voice a series of clicks translated by a device. "Exactly," Daniel replied. "It's adaptable to almost any environment and can support entire communities." Nearby, Mira observed the interaction, her expression unreadable. When Daniel finished, she approached him. "Your presentation is compelling," she admitted. "It's clear you've worked hard to highlight humanity's strengths. Do I detect a hint of approval?" Daniel asked, his tone light but his eyes searching hers for a more definitive answer. "You are beginning to change perceptions," Mira said, her voice measured. "But there's still a long way to go." "Fair enough," Daniel replied. "But changing one mind at a time is a start." As the evening progressed, Daniel and Mira found themselves alone near a quiet corner of the venue. The noise of the crowd faded into the background as they spoke. "You seem more at ease tonight," Mira observed, her gaze steady. "Maybe because I'm starting to feel like we have a chance," Daniel said. "Even if it's just a small one, it's something." Mira tilted her head slightly, studying him. "Your determination is unexpected. Most species I've encountered would focus on self-interest rather than proving their worth to others." "That's the thing about humans," Daniel replied. "We're stubborn. When we set our minds to something, we don't give up easily." Myra's lips curved into a rare smile. "That much is clear." Their conversation was interrupted by Tom, who approached with an air of urgency. "Daniel, we've got a problem. Some of the Thoraxi delegates are stirring up trouble near the energy demonstration. They're questioning the validity of our claims." Daniel sighed. "Of course they are. Let's handle it." As they approached the demonstration, they found a small crowd gathered around a Thoraxi delegate who was loudly challenging one of the human engineers. "How do we know this technology is truly viable?" the Thoraxi asked, his voice dripping with disdain. "Humans are known for their exaggerations." Daniel stepped forward, his tone calm but firm. "You're welcome to test it yourself. Our engineers can guide you through the process." The Thoraxi sneered. "A convenient offer. But your words mean little." "Actions speak louder than words," Mira said, surprising everyone. She stepped forward, addressing the Thoraxi with quiet authority. "If you doubt their claims, prove them wrong. Otherwise, your objections hold no weight." The Thoraxi hesitated, clearly taken aback by Myra's intervention. After a tense moment, he muttered something under his breath and left the area. Daniel turned to Mira, his expression a mixture of gratitude and admiration. "Thank you. That was unexpected. You've shown me that humanity deserves a chance," Mira said simply. "Perhaps others need to see it too." As the event came to a close, Daniel reflected on the evening's success. They had managed to showcase humanity's potential and even win over a few skeptics. But what stayed with him most was Myra's growing support, a sign that perhaps they were on the right path after all. Chapter 4: The First Touch. The station's artificial day-night cycle had just shifted to evening, casting a warm golden hue across its halls. After the success of the event, Daniel found himself unable to relax. The day's conversations and subtle power plays lingered in his mind, each interaction replaying like a puzzle he needed to solve. He was in the middle of reviewing notes on his tablet when a soft chime announced a visitor. Surprised, he set the device aside and opened the door to find Mira standing there. Her silver skin reflected the ambient light, and her expression was calm yet unreadable. "Mira," Daniel said, stepping aside to let her in. "Wasn't expecting company tonight." "I thought we should talk," she replied, her tone as composed as always. "May I?" "Of course," Daniel said, gesturing toward the small seating area in his quarters. He retrieved a pair of glasses and poured them both a drink from the decanter on the table. "You've got my full attention." Mira sat gracefully, her posture poised. She accepted the drink, though she only held it, not drinking. "Your presentation today was compelling. More so than I expected." "I'll take that as a compliment," Daniel said, sitting across from her. "But I get the sense there's more on your mind." "You're perceptive," she said, a flicker of amusement crossing her features. "Today, I saw how your people strive to overcome their flaws, but it's not just your presentation that's been on my mind." Daniel leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "What is it, then?" Mira hesitated, an unusual pause for someone so composed. Your determination is unlike what I've encountered before. It's unsettling, yet intriguing." Daniel smiled slightly. "I could say the same about you. The way you stood up to the Thoraxi earlier, it's not what I expected from someone who values peace so deeply." Her gaze softened, and for a moment, the cool reserve that defined her seemed to waver. "Peace does not mean passivity. Sometimes, it requires action to protect what matters." "And what matters to you?" Daniel asked, his voice quieter now. Mira met his gaze, the silence between them growing heavy with unspoken words. "Understanding. Connection. Perhaps even trust." Daniel felt a shift in the air, a tension that wasn't born of conflict but something deeper. He reached out, his hand hovering near hers. "I think we're more alike than either of us realized." Slowly, Mira placed her hand on his, her touch cool yet electric. The contact sent a jolt through Daniel, and he could see a faint shimmer in Myra's silver skin, as though her emotions were reflecting outward. "This is dangerous," she murmured, though she didn't pull away. "Maybe," Daniel admitted, his voice steady. "But it feels right." Her fingers tightened slightly around his, and then she leaned closer, her luminous eyes searching his for something unspoken. Daniel didn't move, letting her decide. When she finally closed the distance, her lips brushed his in a kiss that was tentative, exploratory, and filled with the weight of their uncharted connection. The kiss deepened gradually, each of them finding a rhythm as their barriers crumbled. Daniel's hands moved to her shoulders, his touch gentle but firm, while Myra's fingers traced the line of his jaw, exploring the unfamiliar texture of human skin. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. Myra's normally composed expression was softened, her luminous eyes brighter than before. "I didn't think," she began, but the words faltered. "Neither did I," Daniel said, his voice thick with emotion. "But here we are." Myra's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. "It seems we've crossed a threshold, Daniel Riker." "It seems so," he replied, "and I don't regret it." For the first time, Mira allowed herself a small laugh, soft and melodic. "Neither do I. But this changes things." "It does," Daniel agreed. "But maybe change is what we need." They spent the rest of the evening talking, their conversation flowing more freely than ever before. Though the risks of their connection loomed large, neither could deny the bond forming between them. As the station settled into its artificial night, their shared understanding grew deeper, laying the foundation for something neither had expected but both knew would alter their paths forever. Chapter 5: Cultural Tensions. The aftermath of Daniel and Myra's intimate connection hung like a delicate thread between them, taut but unbroken. They continued their diplomatic efforts side by side, careful to keep their evolving relationship hidden. Yet the bond they shared was undeniable, growing stronger with each passing day. However, word of their closeness began to spread through the station. Whispers among the delegates hinted at more than just professional collaboration, and soon tensions began to surface. Daniel was in the middle of reviewing the latest reports on interspecies relations when Tom burst into his quarters, his expression grim. "Daniel, we've got a problem," Tom said, dropping into a chair uninvited. "Word's out about you and Mira." Daniel set his tablet down, his brow furrowing. "What do you mean?" "I mean the council's buzzing with rumors. The Thoraxi and a few others are calling it improper entanglement. They're claiming it compromises both of your positions." Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I knew this would come up eventually, but I didn't think it'd spread this fast." Tom leaned forward. "This isn't just gossip, Daniel. They're pushing for an inquiry. If it happens, you'll both be put under the microscope. It could derail everything we've been working for." Before Daniel could respond, chimes sounded, and the door slid open to reveal Mira. She stepped inside, her composed demeanor masking the tension in her posture. "I assume you've heard," she said, glancing between the two men. "Yeah," Daniel replied. "Tom just filled me in. How bad is it on your end?" Mira sighed softly, her silver skin shimmering faintly. "The Talinari delegation is divided. Some see our connection as a breach of our principles. Others believe it's an opportunity for greater understanding. But the pressure is mounting." Tom stood, crossing his arms. "We need a plan, and we need it now. If this inquiry happens, you two have to be ready to defend yourselves. We'll need to shift the narrative," Daniel said, his mind already working. "Frame this not as a scandal, but as an example of what's possible when species truly connect." "That will not be easy," Mira warned. "The Council thrives on tradition and caution. They do not take well to challenges, especially from new members like humanity." "Then we'll give them something they can't ignore," Daniel said firmly. "We'll focus on the work we've done together, how it's benefited the station. If we show them results, they'll have a harder time dismissing us." Mira regarded him for a long moment before nodding. "It's a risk, but one worth taking. I will prepare a statement from my delegation. They may not all support me, but my voice carries weight. And I'll handle the human side," Daniel said. "Tom, can you gather testimonials from other species who've participated in our programs? We need as much support as we can get." "Already on it," Tom said, giving him a thumbs up before heading out. "You two focus on getting your story straight. I'll handle the rest." Over the next few days, Daniel and Mira worked tirelessly, crafting their arguments and gathering evidence of their joint successes. Late one evening, as they reviewed their materials, Daniel looked up at Mira. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice quiet. "If this goes south, it could hurt you more than me. The Talinari hold their principles tightly." Mira met his gaze, her expression unwavering. "I've spent my life upholding those principles. But principles are meaningless if they cannot evolve. What we're doing isn't wrong, Daniel. It's necessary." Her words bolstered him, and they returned to their work with renewed determination. When the day of the inquiry arrived, the council chamber was packed, the atmosphere heavy with anticipation. The head of the council, a towering Lyraxian with a voice like rolling thunder, called the session to order. "The matter before us today concerns allegations of impropriety between delegates Riker and Mira of the Talinari. We will hear their defense before deliberating." Daniel stepped forward first, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Esteemed members of the council, our actions have not compromised our duties. On the contrary, our collaboration has led to tangible benefits for this station and its inhabitants. We represent what is possible when species work together, transcending differences to achieve something greater." Mira followed, her tone calm but resolute. "The Talinari value connection and understanding above all. My bond with Delegate Riker is not a betrayal of those values, but an embodiment of them. Together, we have fostered initiatives that have strengthened this community." The council questioned them extensively, probing for weaknesses in their arguments. Daniel and Mira held their ground, their responses measured and confident. By the end of the session, The murmurs in the chamber had shifted from skepticism to contemplation. As the council deliberated, Daniel and Mira sat together in the waiting area, the tension between them palpable. "No matter what happens," Daniel said quietly, "I'm glad we did this. We stood up for what we believe in." Mira placed a hand on his, her touch grounding him. "And that is worth any outcome." When the council finally reconvened, the decision was announced. No further action would be taken. While not a full endorsement, it was a victory, a sign that the council was willing to tolerate their partnership for now. As they left the chamber, Daniel turned to Mira. "We're not out of the woods yet, but this feels like a step forward." Mira nodded, a faint smile gracing her lips. "A step forward is all we need. Together, we can navigate the rest." Chapter 6: The Crisis. The council's decision to let Daniel and Mira's relationship stand unchallenged had diffused immediate tension, but it also ignited quiet unrest among certain factions. Delegates from species less inclined toward diplomacy began maneuvering in the shadows, seeking to discredit humanity and Mira's standing within the Talonari. The whispers grew louder when a critical incident occurred. Daniel was poring over reports in his quarters when his communicator buzzed urgently. It was Tom, his face grim on the small screen. "We've got a situation," Tom said without preamble. "Meet me in the central atrium." "Myra's already on her way." Daniel didn't hesitate, grabbing his jacket and heading out. When he arrived, he found Tom waiting with Mira, who looked uncharacteristically shaken. "What's going on?" Daniel asked, glancing between them. Mira answered first, her usually steady voice betraying a hint of unease. "The Avarni delegation, one of the more aggressive species, has accused me of manipulating trade negotiations in favor of humanity. They claim I acted outside of my role and have filed a formal complaint with the council." Daniel's jaw tightened. "That's absurd. You've been nothing but impartial." "Doesn't matter if it's true," Tom said. "The Avarni are using this to push an agenda. They've been unhappy with humanity's presence on the council from the start, and they see this as an opportunity to knock us both down." Mira took a deep breath. "The council has called for an emergency session tomorrow to address the accusations. If they find me guilty, it could jeopardize everything we've worked for." Daniel clenched his fists, anger flashing in his eyes. "We're not letting that happen." "What's their evidence?" Tom handed Daniel a tablet. "They're pointing to a trade route proposal Mira supported, which just so happens to benefit Earth's supply chain. Conveniently, they've left out the part where it benefits half a dozen other species, too." "It's a manipulation," Mira said quietly, "but their argument is compelling to those already skeptical of our intentions." Daniel paced, thinking. "Then we fight fire with facts. We'll dissect their claims, point out the omissions, and make it clear that their accusations are baseless." "That won't be enough," Mira said. "The Avarni will frame this as a matter of principle. They'll argue that even the appearance of bias undermines the council's integrity." Daniel stopped pacing and looked directly at her. "Then we shift the focus. We show the council what's really at play here, an attempt to discredit not just us, but the progress we're trying to make. This isn't about a trade route. It's about fear of change." Myra's luminous eyes met his, a flicker of hope breaking through her worry. "It's a bold strategy, but it might work. The council respects transparency and fairness." Tom nodded. "We'll need to work through the night to prepare. I'll dig up every record of Avarni hypocrisy I can find, and I'll work with Mira to craft our defense," Daniel said. "We're going to turn this around." The following day, the council chamber was filled to capacity, the air heavy with anticipation. The head of the council called the session to order, his tone grave. "The Avarni delegation has brought forth accusations of misconduct against Delegate Mira of the Talonari, alleging undue influence in trade negotiations. We will hear their arguments and the defense before deliberating." The Avarni representative, a sharp-featured being with scales that shimmered darkly, rose to speak. "Esteemed council members, we stand here today not out of malice, but to protect the integrity of this body. Delegate Myra's actions have compromised the fairness of our negotiations, casting doubt on the impartiality of the Talonari and humanity alike. Their argument was calculated, weaving half-truths with veiled insinuations." As they spoke, Daniel watched the room, noting which delegates seemed swayed and which remained skeptical. When it was their turn, Mira rose first. Her voice was steady, though her hands were clasped tightly in front of her. "Members of the council, the Avarni's accusations are based on selective evidence and a narrative designed to mislead. The proposal in question benefits multiple species, not just humanity. My actions were guided by the principles of fairness and mutual gain, not favoritism. Daniel followed, his tone firm and direct. This is not about a trade route. It's about fear of change, fear of progress, and fear of the partnerships that are forming here. The Avarni seek to undermine these efforts by casting doubt, but their argument collapses under scrutiny. He displayed a series of holographic charts, highlighting the widespread benefits of the proposal and pointing out similar actions taken by the Avarni themselves in past negotiations. If the Council wishes to discuss integrity, perhaps we should examine the full scope of these records. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as the Avarni delegates' composure cracked slightly. The Council members whispered among themselves, their expressions shifting as they processed the information. The deliberation was tense and lasted longer than any of them anticipated. When the head of the Council finally announced the decision, the chamber fell silent. After reviewing the evidence, we find no misconduct in Delegate Myra's actions. The trade route proposal remains valid, and this Council will take no further action on this matter. Relief flooded through Daniel as the chamber erupted in subdued applause. Mira let out a quiet breath, her shoulders relaxing for the first time in hours. As they left the chamber, Daniel turned to her. "We did it." Mira looked at him, her expression a mix of gratitude and resolve. "No, Daniel. We did it together." And that's what they fear the most. Chapter 7, The Turning Point. The aftermath of the Council's decision to clear Mira of misconduct left a charged atmosphere on the station. Though their defense had been successful, the accusations had stirred deeper tensions among the delegates. The Avarni's maneuvering had exposed a divide, those who believe humanity could coexist peacefully and those who viewed them as a destabilizing influence. Daniel, Mira, and Tom convened in one of the station's smaller observation decks later that evening. The wide viewport framed the endless sprawl of stars beyond, but none of them seemed particularly interested in the view. Tom leaned back in his chair, the fatigue of the last few days etched into his features. "Well, we won that round, but I don't think the Avarni are done trying to stir the pot." "No, they're not," Mira agreed, her silver skin glimmering faintly under the soft lighting. "They'll regroup and find another way to challenge us. They fear what we represent." "And what exactly do we represent?" Daniel asked, folding his arms. His tone carried more frustration than curiosity. Mira turned her calm gaze on him. "Change. Collaboration. The idea that humanity and the Talanari, two species from vastly different philosophies, could find common ground threatens their grasp on the old ways." Tom nodded. "But it also shows that we're making progress. If they're this rattled, it means we're getting through to people." Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Then we need to capitalize on it. Build on this momentum before they can regroup." "But how?" Myra's expression turned contemplative. "The Council operates on consensus. If we want to shift the balance, we need to rally more voices to our cause." "Great," Tom said, his tone half joking. "Let's just convince a room full of skeptics to back us." "Easy." Daniel shot him a look but couldn't suppress a smirk. "It's not impossible. We've already started to sway some of them. We just need a bigger push." Mira tilted her head slightly, considering. "What if we hosted a summit? A gathering of delegates focused on practical solutions to shared challenges. It would highlight the benefits of collaboration and provide an opportunity to strengthen alliances." Daniel's eyes lit up. "That's a great idea. We can frame it around neutral topics, trade efficiency, environmental restoration, sustainable resource sharing. Nothing that would feel too controversial, but still underscores the value of working together." Tom clapped his hands together. "I like it. And if we're smart about who we invite, we can stack the deck with delegates who are more open-minded. That way, the opposition won't dominate the narrative." "Exactly," Mira said. "We must be careful, though. The Avarni and their allies will see this as a direct challenge. They may try to disrupt it." "Let them try," Daniel said firmly. "We'll be ready." Over the next few weeks, the trio worked tirelessly to organize the summit. Invitations were carefully distributed, emphasizing themes of shared progress and mutual benefit. Delegates from dozens of species accepted, intrigued by the opportunity to discuss pressing issues in a collaborative setting. On the day of the summit, the station's Grand Assembly Hall was transformed into a vibrant hub of activity. Interactive displays showcased successful cross-species projects, and panels were scheduled to address topics like resource distribution and interstellar communication networks. Daniel stood near the entrance, greeting delegates as they arrived. Mira was at his side, her presence as poised as ever. Tom flitted between groups, ensuring everything was running smoothly. As the summit began, the room buzzed with energy. Delegates mingled, exchanging ideas and forging connections. Panels sparked lively debates, but the tone remained constructive. For once, it seemed the old divisions were giving way to genuine curiosity and cooperation. During a break, Mira and Daniel stepped aside to observe the scene. "This is what I hoped for," Mira said quietly. "Species from all walks of life coming together to solve problems, not create them." "It's a start," Daniel replied, his voice thoughtful. "But it won't erase the opposition. The Avarni will be watching, waiting for a misstep. Then we must ensure there are none," Mira said, her gaze steady. "Today is about planting seeds. The results will come later." As the day progressed, it became clear the summit was exceeding expectations. Even skeptics who had attended out of obligation found themselves engaging in meaningful dialogue. By the time the final session concluded, the atmosphere was one of cautious optimism. Mira and Daniel reconvened with Tom in a quiet corner of the hall, exhaustion and satisfaction etched into their faces. "Well," Tom said, leaning against a wall, "if this doesn't shut the critics up, I don't know what will." "It won't shut them up," Mira said, her tone pragmatic. "But it will make it harder for them to discredit us." Daniel nodded. "And that's enough for now. We've shown what's possible. The rest will take time." As the summit wound down, Daniel and Mira found themselves alone again, standing near the viewport. The stars beyond seemed closer now, as if reflecting the progress they had made. "This feels like a turning point," Daniel said, his voice quiet. "It is," Mira replied. "But turning points are only beginnings. The real work lies ahead." Daniel glanced at her, a small smile playing on his lips. "Then it's a good thing we're in this together." Mira returned his smile, a rare softness in her expression. "Yes, it is." Chapter 8, A Shared Future. The success of the summit rippled through the Galactic Council like a current, sparking discussions and debates across the station. Delegates who had once dismissed humanity as reckless and unpredictable were now reconsidering their views. Even the staunchest skeptics found themselves grappling with the undeniable impact of the event. But not everyone was pleased. Daniel sat at his desk, reviewing the post-summit reports. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, with many delegates praising the practical outcomes of the panels. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that the opposition was regrouping. The Avarni, silent since the summit, loomed in the back of his mind like a storm cloud. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. Mira stepped into the room, her silver skin catching the light. She carried a data pad, her expression calm but serious. "Daniel," she began, setting the pad down on his desk. "We've received an invitation." He raised an eyebrow. "From who?" "The Council," she replied. "They've called a special session to discuss the outcomes of the summit and the future role of humanity in the Council." Daniel leaned back, his mind racing. That could be a good thing. Or it could be a trap. "Perhaps both," Mira said, her tone measured. "But we must attend. This is the moment we've been working toward." Tom entered the room just then, carrying 2 steaming cups of tea. "Did I hear something about a special session?" "Looks like it," Daniel said, filling him in on the details. "We need to prepare for anything. The Avarni won't let this go without a fight." Tom handed him a cup. "Then let's make sure we're ready to counter whatever they throw at us. We've come too far to let them derail this now." The council chamber was packed for the session, the air buzzing with tension. Delegates from every corner of the galaxy filled the seats, their expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion. Daniel, Mira, and Tom stood together at the center, their presence a symbol of the collaboration they had fought to establish. The head of the council, a venerable Alterian with a voice like low thunder, opened the session. "Today, we gather to discuss the outcomes of the recent summit and the implications for this council's future. Humanity's role, in particular, has come under scrutiny." Daniel stepped forward, his gaze steady. "Esteemed council members, the summit demonstrated what is possible when species work together. The solutions we discussed were not just theoretical. They were practical, achievable, and beneficial to all. Humanity is committed to contributing to this vision, not for self-interest, but because we believe in a shared future. Mira followed, her voice calm yet resolute. The Talinari have always valued connection and understanding. What I have witnessed in humanity is a willingness to confront their flaws and strive for better. This partnership is not a compromise of our principles. It is an extension of them. As they finished speaking, the Avarni delegate rose. His tone was sharp, his scaled features rigid with disdain. Words are easy. Actions are what matter. Humanity's history speaks for itself. They bring conflict wherever they go. Can we risk allowing them to shape this council's future? Daniel met his gaze, his voice steady. You're right. Words alone mean nothing. But our actions over the past weeks have shown our commitment to cooperation. The success of the summit wasn't about humanity, it was about all of us working together. Denying that progress because of fear is a disservice to everyone here. Murmurs filled the chamber as the delegates deliberated. The Altarian called for a vote, and the tension in the room became almost palpable. One by one, the delegates cast their decisions. When the results were announced, the chamber fell silent. The council has decided, the Altarian intoned. Humanity will retain its place among us, and its collaborative initiatives will be officially supported. Relief and triumph surged through Daniel, Mira, and Tom as the chamber erupted into a mixture of applause and grumbling dissent. They had done it. Later, as the station settled into its artificial night, Daniel and Mira stood by the observation deck, watching the stars. The weight of the day lifted slowly, replaced by a quiet sense of accomplishment. This feels different, Daniel said, his voice low. Like we've crossed a line we can't go back from. We have, Mira replied. But it's the right line to cross. He turned to her, a small smile playing on his lips. I couldn't have done this without you. Mira met his gaze, her silver eyes glowing faintly. Nor I without you, Daniel. Our bond has been our strength. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Slowly, Daniel reached out, his fingers brushing hers. The simple touch carried more weight than any speech they'd given. Mira stepped closer, her hands sliding into his. We've built something worth protecting. Together. Daniel nodded, his grip tightening slightly. Together. As they stood there, the stars stretching endlessly before them, the future felt uncertain but full of possibility. They had taken the first steps toward a new chapter, not just for their species, but for the galaxy itself. And whatever came next, they would face it side by side.